Hey guys, it's CB3 here. Last time I uploaded a video on my balance change wish list back in the beginning of January, I had a really annoying pinging sound in the background of that video. Made it pretty much impossible to watch. So I am re-uploading that video. So this is your new intro. Hope you guys enjoy. Hello everybody and welcome to another video on the CB3 YouTube channel. I am CB3, your host, and today we're going to get talking about the balance changes. Unfortunately, another round of balance changes have come and gone. Elixir Golem got a pretty big nerf that I think has made him a lot weaker than they anticipated, which isn't really a bad thing because I wasn't mad about having him out of the meta. And then the Night Witch pretty much became irrelevant as well. The bat spawn at the beginning kind of killed the card. I think they could have gone a lot simpler and just taken one bat away from death, so that when it was cloned or just in general, it didn't do so much damage. Two bats when it originally was, how it originally was not preferable. But four was just a little too much. And I think the middle ground with three would have been great. Luckily, we got the Fisherman buff, which allowed him to actually hook things. I've used him in a couple decks, and he's been actually good. The charge time actually does help a little bit, which was what I kind of was hoping for in previous changes. And I actually had it, so before I was going to make this video a pre-balance change video. So I had a bunch of buffs and nerfs that I had on my wish list. So I ended up not doing that because I thought that since we already knew what the changes were pretty much going to be, with the E-Golem and the Night Witch being too strong, and they kind of announced that on Twitter, I was like, well, let's do something that I hope for in the future, something that could actually happen. On Twitter, Seth, who is one of the main creators or community people for Supercell, has talked about some reworks, including the Zappies, which I will touch on today on my thoughts. But I kind of wanted to just go through mostly buffs. I have one nerf. I don't really think a lot of cards are OP or oppressive right now. I thought the Elixir Golem was definitely there, and they took care of that. I think they overdid it a little bit, but I'm not really going to worry about a buff for that card right now because it's seen its time in the meta in the last 2 or 3 months since its release. So I'm just going to stick to buffs of cards that haven't really received anything in a while. And I just kind of wanted to go through some of those changes with you guys today, see what you guys think. If you guys haven't watched Clash with Ash, they have talked about some reworks and some buffs to the lowest use rate and lowest win rate cards, which are basically cards that don't get used by many people. That's what use rate means, and win rate refers to how often the card actually wins when put into people's decks. It obviously depends on how often people use it, but a lot of those cards were at the lowest ends of the totem pole when it came to use or win rates. And so I did really like that video, kind of what they thought. I do think some changes are kind of confusing, and I do think that the balance change team for Supercell has a lot to look at and a lot to play test and kind of figure out where they want to go. First, we're going to start with the Goblin Giant. Today, the Goblin Giant is pretty much worthless in my opinion. It does still serve as a tank, but I think it could use a good buff. I think compared to the Giant at 5 Elixir, which at this moment in time, the Goblin Giant is worth 6. The Giant has way more versatility. If you use a simple zap spell, you still get a positive elixir trade with most encounters, unless they have a mini P.E.K.K.A. or an Inferno Dragon or something like that. The Giant offers a lot. I will just tell you guys his stats. I can actually pull them up real quick. The Giant at tournament level standard, which means level 9. These are his stats right here. So if you guys haven't seen this, his damage is 211. Hit points are 3275. Damage per second is 140 because his hit speed is 1.5. Okay. I think the rest of the stuff you don't change. You're not going to change targeting buildings or his slow speed or his range being medium for melee. Those are all things that you don't touch. But I don't think the Giant needs a nerf. They gave him a nerf a couple balance changes ago with his health, I believe. Because he was very, very, very overpowered. If you got him to level 13 and you were facing lower level people. Keeping my finger on this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. Um, but basically, the Goblin Giant, I'll pull him up as well. He is just very weak in comparison. So we'll go to level 9. And based on what I just said with the Goblin Giant, the Goblin Giant's damage is 146. And if you remember, Giants is at 211 at the same level. Hit speed for Goblin Giant is 1.7 compared to the Giant's 1.5. And then the health is 2616, which is 660 or 659 health less than the Giant. Take note, Goblin Giant is 6 elixir. So this is why I just think he needs a buff. I mean, I understand that the Spear Goblins add a little bit of versatility, can kind of kill units on the side, but honestly, having 2 Spear Goblins on top is good, but if you're taking care of a skeleton army or a goblin gang or some kind of swarm unit, which is pretty much what they were supposed to kill, they don't take care of those as quickly as needed for how little health the Goblin Giant has. So my buffs today, I have on here that I just want his hit points to go up pretty dramatically. I asked for an 18% hit point boost, which 18%, 20% would be 522 health. So it's a little less than 500 health added, which would still put him below the Giant. But I think that would be a healthy health point range. And then I want his hit speed to match the Giant, so 1.5 instead of 1.7. I think the main issue is if it actually makes it to the tower, which often not if you don't have a spell because it's so high in elixir. For 6 elixir, it's kind of a lot. If you don't have something to protect him, he often doesn't even make it to the tower. But if he does, he takes forever to swing. And then in between, obviously it's really hard to keep swinging when your hit speed is so slow. I think the Giant is just a bruiser, and he goes in there and destroys. And I don't necessarily think the Goblin Giant needs to do that, because he has Spear Goblins, especially if they're not shooting at a unit. They start attaching to the tower and can do massive damage real fast. But I really didn't want to touch the Spear Goblins, because if you touch the Spear Goblins, then you're gonna make the Goblin Hut even stronger. And I think the Goblin Hut is in like a perfect spot right now. It's not oppressive. It's not annoying. It gets the job done. It's kind of like a more expensive and a little higher damage output Tombstone, which works out well. So I just wanted to touch only the Goblin Giant. I think if it got a good hit point boost and made it so that it's more viable and stays alive longer, the Spear Goblins could actually do more work on little skeletons or whatever else. So that's what I think. Just comparing the two big giants, basically. He's not quite Golem-esque, and he's not Royal Giant-esque either. The Royal Giant is in his own territory, I think, because he has that extra range that the Goblin Giant doesn't have. So I really think those two are the most comparable, and for 6 elixir, I just think he needs more utility. And I think his use rates and his win rates aren't very high either. So unless he's paired with like a Sparky or something strong and has a really good deck behind him, I think he just needs a buff. So the next one I'm going to pull up for you guys is a card that everyone, including Supercell, hates to love, and that is going to be the Zappies. This is level 10. I can have level 9 up here. Not very strong. I think the main issue is that they just attack. They attack too slow on their first attack. And I was watching Clash with Ash, and he had a couple guys on there that were talking about the Zappies and the rework that needs to happen. I think the most simple change, and I think they need a buff. They're worthless right now. I think they should have 4 Zappies. Honestly, in the game, I think every single card should have an even number. That if they have multiple units, like the Royal Recruits have 6. I think it was kind of a bad idea to have the Barbarians be 5, just because it does so much more damage output. But they did kind of scale it down, so they're not oppressive or awful, and they can get killed by Fireball if you have a strong enough Fireball for them. So I understand that I like that, I guess, and they still have the split potential. That's the problem with Zappies, is they don't have the split potential, and so you put them all in one lane. and they get killed by fireball real quickly, or they're real easy to destroy because they don't attack fast. And they aren't ready to attack on new units. They have to recharge up basically, which takes a whole nother set of time. So I think that their initial attack speed should stay the same in my opinion, but I think they should add a fourth Zappy, and then I think their damage should go up. That would allow them to be more of like a damaging unit. So I said 10%, which at tournament level standard will only make them go up 7 hit points, which isn't a lot. It's not crazy. Um, and so then when they actually do hit, they're doing a little bit more damage. But then I think that their overall attack speed should go down to 1.9 from 1.6. So this wouldn't allow them to stun lock people, and have so that if like a giant's coming down the lane, it can never get to your tower because it's so it's getting hit by every single electricity bolt that the Zappies are doing, and so it can't move. I think that attack speed would allow things to move, but it also does that reset. It does the stun. It can stop a Sparky if the Sparky is not charged up yet. So those kind of things. I think that would add some utility, allow it to be a little bit stronger without, ruining the game by being an ultimate defensive stopper. All right, so moving on, and this is one that another one that that Clash with Ash kind of talked about on his YouTube channel, but the Royal Recruits, I think they just suck. They really do. I think the shields are great. I don't think you need to up the shield hit points because really they're just meant to take that initial blow, so they're not like eliminated by fireball. And so the shields are good. Same with the guards. I think people were like, hey, the guards kind of suck. They get the utility that they're for, and they're supposed to be able to block one spell and then kind of take another spell or, hits from another unit or something. That's the same thing with the Royal Recruits. I don't see them as like a card that you want to be able to just murder your tower and get over there and just keep killing it and killing it and killing it, because they can't die and they have so much damage that they're putting out. When they were meta back over a year ago, and everyone was using them for every deck, it wasn't fun. You play them it plays on all sides, and it kind of just eliminates the entire side of the field that you're playing on. But I'll just show you guys their stats right now. At level 9, their damage is 101, hit points 440, shield hit points about 200, and their damage per second is 77. Hit speed is 1.3. I don't think they need a major buff. My solution to the Royal Recruits is, since they're recruits, you're assuming that they're young and lively, and kind of, let's see. Deploys a line of recruits armed with spears, shields, and wooden buckets. They dream of ponies and one day wearing metal buckets. So they're lightweight, they're young, they're fast. So I think instead of their speed being medium, I think a good fix would be speed being fast. If you guys watch, or when they walk very slowly. I think if they were able to kind of run like a mini P.E.K.K.A almost does, they'd cross over the other side of the field quicker. I think it would put some more interesting reactions because you'd have to figure out a way to split your units well enough to block them. And then I think the other thing is I'd like their hit points to go up by 7%. Oh, shoot. So their hit points right now are 440. 10% would be 44 hit points. So they'd be up to 480. I said 7%, so like 478 or something like that. Somewhere in there. It's not a major buff, I don't think. Per unit, it definitely adds up and makes it a little harder to kill them. I just think that would be enough to kind of make them more of a defensive unit, but also kind of get them onto the other side of the field if there's not something they're defending on this side. They're also supposed to be, recruits. They're clumsy, they're dumb, they charge into battle, they don't do what you normally would expect a good, well put together warrior to do. So I think going fast would change a lot of interactions, make them a little more interesting, make it so that they're kind of running around, seeming like they're like scrambling like recruits would do. That would make more sense for the archetype of the card and what they stand for. The Royal Recruits are supposed to be figuring stuff out. So that's what I would like to see. I think that would help some interactions, and then I think the hit point boost would allow them to be just a little bit stronger. So when they get to, one side of the field or the other, they're doing a lot better. All right, moving on to the next balance change. I would like a buff to the Rascals. I don't really think it's a crazy buff. I think they're in a pretty good spot for the most part. They do good damage. The Rascal Boy protects and can kind of be a little meat shield. It's still pretty good for mortar decks, but they're not getting used as much as people, or as what they should be. With the release of the Firecracker, the Rascal Girls are pretty much irrelevant. So you're spending 5 on a Rascal Boy that can only do. Let me see. He's got 1,500 health points and 110 damage. So, compared to the giant, he's doing okay damage. It's not bad, but his hit points are half, and he doesn't do nearly as much. And his melee is short, so he has to get really close to units to actually do damage. So, I don't think it's a big deal, but I think with the Firecracker being in there, I think the Rascals need a buff. And my solution is just spreading them out. I think a lot of the times when you place them down, you have the wizard or the executioner or whoever. Sometimes it's your fault because you place them poorly. But if you place them in a good spot, they can still get killed very easily. Sometimes people push them up to the bridge, and that smashes them all together into one small group. I think no matter where you put them, they should have them be spread out. And I think that the girls should be farther away from the boy. It'd be like 1 tile out and 1 tile back, which would kind of spread this and make it a little bit bigger of a circle. I think eventually that they're going to be changing the Firecracker and its spread, because right now it takes up and fans out. I think it should kind of just fan out to like 3 tiles instead of 5, like it currently does. Which in this case, if it does that, then my change to the Rascals would allow them to not die immediately to the Firecracker upon her deployment. So if you deploy the Firecracker right in front of the Rascals while they're walking down your bridge, you would have the girls off to the side a little bit, which would allow, they have to kind of cut in and then go up on, when they go on the bridge. But if you were to place them and they place the Firecracker at the exact same time, they're not going to get blown up immediately. Also, same with like wizard interactions. When you place them right at the bridge, it'll allow them to kind of have that space, which wouldn't, the wizard would only target the boy and not all 3 of them. Because I've had so many times where I place the Rascals down quickly to try to block for the mortar or whatever building that I have out there, and the wizard will drop down and just boom, 1 shot and kill them all. So I think that would be a good change, just spreading them out. That's very simple. I don't think they need any like hit point buffs or damage buffs or anything like that. I just think a simple deployment change, kind of like they did for the minion horde and the bats, kind of the delayed drop so they don't all get killed on a spell prediction, like immediately. They only get like 1 or 2 get killed. I kind of like that. I think the Rascals need that extra help there. Okay, next up is going to be the cannon. I think the cannon is in a terrible spot right now. The Hog Rider currently, the Hog 2.6 cycle with the cannon and the Musketeer, and then the Ice Spirit and the Skeletons all do good work, but the cannon is really just a very minor distraction piece. And in turn, I think it kind of makes the cannon cart, which I also think will get an indirect buff with this. They both need help. I think they are very underutilized. I think units that can't attack air at all just need to be stronger. I think they should be more dominant on the ground. You have like the Prince and the Dark Prince that do a lot of damage on the ground and are really strong. Valkyrie has its good spread where it kills everything around it. Mini P.E.K.K.A.'s got some of the strongest DPS in the game. So you have all those ground units that do work, but then you have the cannon cart that goes at range but doesn't shoot air and does nothing. So my change is I think the cannon should be 2 elixir. I think this would change and make that hog cycle even more deadly. But then you would subtract some of the hit points, which I would say minus 5% hit points, so it's not like a huge change. Let's go back to the cannon. I think at level 9, here it is. At level 9, it has 742 hit points. So minus 5% would only be about 3 or 4 hit points off. which would just kind of weaken it just a little bit. I think that would put it into potentially fireball range or just like 2 hits from a hog at the same level, which I think would be enough to make it worthwhile. So if you send a hog over there, it can knock it out in 2 hits instead of three. And then -2% damage. I think it does good damage for 3 elixir, but if you have 2 elixir, I think it might be overbearing. So I think just a little bit of or a little bit damage take away. -2% is only going to be about 2 or 3 damage taken away. I think it's 3 damage taken away. So it's not crazy different. I don't think it kills the card. I think it makes it, and I don't think it makes it OP either. I think it makes it a pretty balanced card. I think that would make it 2. And then I think the cannon cart for 5 elixir is just too expensive. That's kind of why I knocked the cannon down to 2, because I think that would allow for the cannon to be utilized more in cycle decks, kind of have its purpose fulfilled. And then the cannon changes would go with the cannon card as well. You make it a little weaker in the cannon when it drops, so that 4 elixir change to 4 elixir makes it all the worthwhile. It gets that offensive utility that it needs. At level 9, the cannon cart has 742 hit points, which is the same as the cannon. You obviously change the shield hit points on that as well to match the hit points. So it would die. You get two attacks on it or whatever, and then you have the hog come in and finish it with 2 more. I think that'd be super easy and not like detrimental to the card. So I think 4 elixir, have the cannon changes go in effect, have the damage and shield hit points also be reduced on the cannon cart, the same as the cannon, and then I think it'd be very strong. I think that's worth it. I don't think a ground unit that's only can target ground is worth 4, or is worth more than 4. I think that just kind of kills the card in and of itself, because 5 elixir is a pretty hefty fee to pay. I think that would also make Graveyard a little stronger, which is a card that's also kind of dwindling in the meta right now. You get the cannon that can kind of be 4 elixir with 5, with the Graveyard. So once it crosses the bridge, you get your 2 elixir back. So if they have like a skeleton army or something like that, you can zap it away. That would allow for the cannon cart to do so much more damage and take towers with the help of Graveyard very quickly. So I think it'd make it a lot more fun. I don't think a meta with cannon cart in it is really that terrible. You can kill it with air units. You can kill it with most spells, like a rocket or something like that. Usually you pair the cannon cart with something else, so a rocket or something like that, or a tornado to keep it away. Very easy, and if you reduce its shield hit points and its regular hit points by just a little bit, 3 or 4, it can make a big difference. So I think that would be my changes. I actually only have 1 nerf for today, and that nerf is going to be the Battle Healer. I don't think it's an oppressive card. I really don't even think it's that great. Since they took the boost off of the Battle Healer, you don't really see it as much anymore. It's not like killing people. But I do think those Battle Healer mirror decks are very toxic and really terrible. I think if you have a Battle Healer on the field, the only nerf I would make is that it can't heal other Battle Healers. I don't know how you would implement that in the code. I think it should be pretty easy, but I have no idea, honestly. But I just think if you have 2 Battle Healers on the field, they shouldn't be healing each other. But that heal can still work for other units. So if you have a minion horde that got zapped, and you have 2 Battle Healers healing them up, they could get healed up in like 2 swings. I think that's totally fair and fine. But the non-stop invincible Battle Healers that just go out and take towers, when they're working together, or those Battle Healer cycle decks, I think those are the ones that you got to look out for. So personally, I think the Battle Healer is fine. I just don't want the healing on both. So, or 3 or 4. I've seen so many where they place a Battle Healer, they mirror it, and then they do Skeletons, Ice Spirit, and then like a Zap or something, and then they're back to another Battle Healer, and then they mirror it again. So you have 4 Battle Healers all on the one side, and they're all healing each other, and it's invincible. I think that would help kind of eliminate some of those terrible interactions that people have, because people like to be toxic, and if you're toxic, then shame on you. But those are my balance changes. They actually fixed the Fisherman. in the last battle change, which was a plus for me. I like the Fisherman. I think he's a great card. At 3 elixir, you get like a tornado that lives for a little longer, and can grab all air units. I think that, or all ground units. I think that's great. And his hook, it can actually activate King Tower. I was so happy when I got to play him, and I activated King Tower a few times and totally took out some Goblin Barrel decks and some Miner decks. Very useful. He's got great utility, and his pull is actually worthwhile now. So, thanks for that battle change, or balance change, also a battle change. Thank you for those interaction changes. I think those are great. I think Supercell is doing a good job. They reverted some of those crappy changes. The meta isn't terrible. There's a bunch of different cards getting used. I just think if they make buffs to these cards that I talked about today, the game would be even more fun because you'd have even more cards to choose from. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys subscribe to the channel if you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have comments, please feel free to leave them below. Tell me what changes you'd like or dislike about what I talked about. What changes you guys think need to be made in the game right now. I definitely hit on a lot of the cards that I think would be fun to make changes to and allow for more different gameplay to happen. So it's not just one card being played in the meta all the time. I think these cards are really good and could be really good if they get buffed the right way. So let me know of your guys' thoughts and feedback. And until next time, take care.